to the other. We're quite proud of that and working on getting signage so that people who aren't only on their phones with GPS can see that it's Caleb Nelson Highway. So we'll do the roll call, it says, and let's start up in front with Ray is a member of the Clear Lake Museum, so introduce yourself.
Ray Kress, primarily a gopher at the museum.
And?
My brother Ray, I'm Ron Kress, I'm from the Clear Lake Museum here.
Let's start.
William Johnson from the Frederick Area Humane Society, Historical Society. I was on their board in Amory for a while, so.
Roxanne White, Frederick Historical Society.
Rosa Richardson from the St. George Falls Society. Elise Kallenbach from Pioneer Village Museum.
Brenna Weston from Polk County Museum.
Dawn Peterson, Clear Lake Museum.
And you, sir?
I gotta do this, let's see here. Russ Hansen from Cushing Museum.
I appreciate what you do, Russ. If there, as Brenna mentioned, there is an addition when we get to the lightning, you said lightning session?
Yeah, I just added one from Russ as well, so that's the only change.
Okay. So if there aren't any objections to that addition and nothing else, that would be our agenda. Next would be approval of the minutes from the April 8th meeting. Welcome back. We know we didn't lose you. Hope there's not people out there wandering in the wilderness trying to find where we are. This give it a little bit of a background, I think, is worth it at this time too. The museum is in the 1912 first Clear Lake High School building. So they built their first high school building in 1912. The first graduating class in Clear Lake is 1916, and only 10 years later, 1922, they had outgrown that space and built this high school. This is the second one, and that remained a high school until they built the third one, which is just a little south of the main area, and that was opened up in 1997. So we have a real close association with the community center, which took over this high school building, with the museum, of course, at the first high school building. And the two are actually even connected with a walkway we call a tunnel. It starts out at one level and goes down to the basement of the museum. The neat thing about, I'll give you a little background on where we are at the community center. This building is, as you no doubt noticed if you're driving around it, is huge, and it's kind of convoluted in terms of all the number of doors and things like that. Every rentable space in this building, in this 1922 building, including the gymnasium and everything else, is rented on a daily basis. The kitchen's not on a daily basis, and we have an event center that's rented by the event. But all of the classroom buildings are leased to either startup businesses or some now they don't need to be nonprofit, but we got the American Legion and VFW and Child Evangelism Fellowship and the Scouts, and I'm probably skipping, the museum the museum operates the community newspaper as well. It's called the Chronicle, and they have a rental space in this building too. So it's really become successful. It has a lot of challenges, and we just received a grant to work on some HVAC things for this building. So anyway, that's a little bit about where you're at and why you're here as opposed to being in the museum itself. We really don't, maybe with a group this size we could have met there, but you never know how many you're going to have, so rather than try to move some displays around.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Did you say you own this building?
Well, it's a nonprofit. So the school district transferred ownership in the new school opened up in 97. And after that, then they transferred ownership of this building to the Clear Lake Ministers. The Ministerial Association took it over, bought it for $1, and then realized it was more than they had, more to it than what they could handle. You know, each pastor being a full-time, probably a full-time position. And then they transferred ownership to this nonprofit that has it now. So the museum is one nonprofit, and this place is the second separate nonprofit.
So are you responsible for a lot of the maintenance here? Is there agreement, a lease of some sort?
Yeah, we get by primarily with volunteers, but obviously there's things that require a paid professional to get done. And again, one of our most recent grants is to bring our heating, cooling, and air conditioning system up. There's no air conditioning in the building except for those who put one in their window. So at some point, a dream would be that we have mini splits or something where people can regulate their own space much more closely.
Sorry, I asked so many questions, but are you on a 99-year lease?
No, we own it. We bought it for $1. It's ours. It's,
Oh, you own it.
yeah.
That's one.
So are you expressing an interest in buying it from us?
No, I just compared.
Kidding. No, we don't lease it, we own it. So
That's great.
the museum is owned, the museum building, which you might go through after our meeting, is owned by the nonprofit Clear Lake Historical Museum,
Okay.
and this building is owned by the Clear Lake Area
I
Community
see
Center.
what you're saying.
Yeah. So we're fortunate, talk about fortunate and the museum, and I'd like anyone from our museum that if they hear me say something that sometimes I ramble and it goes off the wrong direction, but to clarify it or you got something to add, please do that. We are so fortunate because 50 years ago, Clear Lake was gearing up for their centennial, and it was a huge event, and I wasn't here. I was alive, but I wasn't in Clear Lake. I didn't grow up here. And after the centennial, there was enough historical stuff gathered that the folks decided we should have a museum. And fortunately, the museum building, which had been, after it was no longer the high school, in 1922, it became an elementary school. I'm pointing that direction because that's where it is. It became an elementary school. And it was that until they built the new elementary school, which is off in that direction. And it's actually the Gaylord Nelson Educational Center. That grade school building is officially called that. So when they got the new elementary school built, that became sort of surplus property to the high school, which was here. And they did some things down there in that building, but eventually, by the time of our centennial, they were ready to let us lease it. At that point, we were leasing that building for $1 a year from the school district. But the fact that we had a 3-story building that we could fill with things that were historically significant, or became historically significant. There were people in town that knew to save things that were still junk, that were still, you'd say, why would you save that? But years later, it becomes a treasure. Well, we were fortunate. So we collected things when things were still being, when original properties were still being emptied out, and it was very fortunate. So to have that space. Now, it's not handicap accessible, and we don't heat it, but we do cool it. So in the summertime, it's a decent place to visit. Yeah.
Do you have a lot of Gaylord Nelson memorabilia or exhibits or?
Yeah, and Ray here, I think, is the one who primarily so another story, and that's maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, I lose track. This building has a heating plant, and that one, the museum does not. But a steam pipe that was not visible because it was behind a wall in an open cavernous area was spewing steam into the museum. Even though we didn't heat it, we had water dripping from the ceiling. Then the exhibits on the walls were being encased in ice and stuck there. So it was just a catastrophe that we couldn't understand what's going on, what's happening. Is it coming from the roof? Is it a shingle problem? And it was only by luck or the grace of God that we were had some people come in all who had expertise on buildings and stuff that came in and to help us try to discover what's our problem. That we lifted up a ceiling tile and looked on the wall over it, into, again, a place where you can't get to. And at that moment, it was spewing out the steam and we had the answer. But had we looked at that when it wasn't pumping steam, we would never have gotten the answer. So we obviously cut. Now, why that happened, it's unknown because the building has been connected to this building and nothing changed in the heating plant in all those years, but that, something, either a check valve failed or something rotted or rusted or whatever, but anyway. So,
When was that?
was that, are we at 4 years ago now?
4 or 5
Because I
years.
remember you guys talking about.
Yeah,
it.
yeah. But the good part was, I mean, the insurance helped us out a lot, and we were able to really build it back nice. We did lose some things, but nothing very consequential. Some of our artifacts have watermarks on them because of the ice and stuff. But with the work of the people you see here and others, we have got a museum we're real proud of. And there's a lot of work. We're not done. It'll never be done because history is on the move. So, but we're pretty proud of what it's become. Yes, sir.
So tell us about Clear Lake. Is it a growing village, a shrinking village, and how do you?
Great question. And you guys again pitch in. Well, we got a great setback coming now. Right now, these two guys, these two twins, these pair of twins, Bruce and Bernie Paulson, Clayton High School kids, at 15 years of age, and then moving through life, invented a custom harvester, a bean, was it beans that they said?
Yes.
Genius kids, and they came up with this idea, and Clear Lake at that time, and I hope now still, but at that time, was so welcoming to people with an idea. Come on here and we'll get you some space, we'll help you out, get you started. And so the Paulson brothers started making bean pickers in what had been a school bus garage, but then the school built a new garage, and so it was surplus property. Anyway, that evolved into what is now Oxbow International. Just a huge. They build custom harvesters of all types. The Paulson brothers themselves are no longer financially connected to it in any way that I'm aware of. And the headquarters for the company is in someplace in New York. Chisholm Ryder was the company that, anyway, they've been sold out, they're international, they're foreign owned and that kind of thing. And they had told the workers there just a matter of a couple of months ago that they're closing up shop and moving to New York. So everybody employed at Oxbow here in town, building those custom harvesters, and it's been in business. You know, the kids, those Paulson brothers started that in the 50s, and where it evolved to what it is today. That's leaving town. So there's a big gap in work in that kind of thing. So but is something better coming? You can hope. I don't know. You hope so. But that's the rest of the town. It's growing. I think the growth is great in that it's slow. Because I think some of us would have a hard time having the kind of New Richmond type growth that we look close by to see, where you take a 80-acre fertile farm field. I'm an ag teacher, and you turn it into a housing development. That hurts. They got to live somewhere, but gosh, that flat fertile farm field, I'd like to see them somewhere else.
And if we grow small towns, if they grow too fast, we just enlarged the sewer plant here last year. And if we grow too fast, now you gotta put up another water tower for water pressure, for fire and everything else. So there is an intermediate spot in there where everything runs a little bit smoother, but we really don't have housing. That's probably our biggest problem right now. We don't have a developer for a housing area.
So many of the other larger industry in town is they go by AFP, which stands for Advanced Food Products. That's here because after the logging was done in Clear Lake, then dairy was king. And the Clear Lake Farmers Cooperative Creamery was, a force to be reckoned with. just 75, I do the old news for the Chronicle, which I mentioned is the Clear Lake newspaper that's owned by the museum. And they paid out more than, 75 years ago, they were paying out more than $1 million to farmers in their, paying for milk and stuff like that, which would, everybody, in my opinion, everybody either worked for the creamery or was a dairy farmer and shipped milk to the creamery. Everybody had a connection to it, it seemed. And so that evolved, and the co-op, when the co-op merged in with Barron and then became Foremost Farms USA, and then that plant is in Clayton. But this one evolved, Land Lakes came in for a while, and now it's AFP. And that's also foreign owned, but that's been a good, they've invested a lot of money in Clear Lake. They basically removed a hill to build their warehouse, and so I hope they're here to stay because they are they're the top wage paying business in town.
Do you know what the population is?
I understand that we got signs with different numbers, so about 1,100 though is where I would put you.
Yeah.
How long did the railroad last?
Well, did it leave in 79? It was still, I came to town in 77, and it wasn't too long after that they pulled up the tracks, but 79 or 81, I mean, it seems like it was,
I think they pulled tracks up in 81, but I think the railroad had already stopped going through here by that time. So I would say 79 probably would be pretty close.
and they came through in the 1880s, so that was the run.
Yeah, it was an Omaha railroad.
Yes,
So,
yeah, yep, 75 years ago, the railroad got permission from the Public Service Commission to stop passenger service. Now, they didn't, I don't know how soon after they did it, but they got permission 75 years ago to drop the Nemacoggin from its daily trip up from Hudson area to.
Turtle Lake was kind of the crossroads up there for the railroad company, because they had one going north and south and one going east and west.
Yeah,
through
yeah.
Turtle Lake there.
So why I asked the population and those other questions is I'm getting at your support from the community for the Historical Society. How do you feel about that? Is there any?
I think it's amazing. I'm a bragger about it, but I really do believe it's amazing. As an example of that, there's a bandstand that was built 102 or 3 years ago next to Don's house. And so when it reached its centennial, it had not been used hardly at all since I came to town in 77. Occasionally something, but basically nothing. So we wanted to celebrate the building's centennial, and so we have reached out to businesses and local people to support. What we do is we hire a band, some musical group, whatever. This summer it'll be 5 times throughout the summer, but it's paid for by donations, and then it's a free concert. And it's been just overwhelming how supportive the community is to that. And with naming the Gaylord Nelson Highway, putting the signs up, that also has been phenomenal. So I feel like, and we do have a very nice group of volunteers beyond the 4 of us that are here now. So I got a lot of good things to say.
Is this a tourist area around here?
Well, a little bit. We have a beautiful park with camping, either the tent camping or camper camping. Beautiful place. It's very beautiful, and I think it's sold out most of the summer because it is so nice and it's fairly inexpensive. Other than that, I don't know about much of tourists. Do you think?
We have a individual who purchased the old First Lutheran Church here, a church that Tim is well familiar with, and they call it the Sanctuary. And they have like over 20 apartments in there now, or living. And people are invited to come into Clear Lake and spend the weekend here. And when we heard about their intentions, we thought, whoa, that's gonna be a tough sell, but that building is very, very active in bringing people in from the Twin Cities area and around, and they bring in for family reunions and functions of that nature, class reunions, and so they're relatively new to us and have brought other people into Clear Lake along with that. So it's been real beneficial that they purchased that and got that business going there now. So.
Yeah, it's an Airbnb, and it has, again, it'll sleep, 50 or more people in it. And man, it was really what a blessing to the community, because a used church, the church didn't go out of business. They built one that was more handicap accessible and all that kind of thing. Parking and all that. But that could have been the kind of thing that is the sore spot. You got some junk kind of business that salvage something or whatever else. But instead, I would suspect that they pumped $1 million into that place to make it what it is.
It's just a block up the street.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah, it's a block from our museum, so we get a lot of people that
Yeah.
come from there
Yeah.
down to our museum, which helps us out a lot.
So who owns that?
I should go get there's that little flyer. I'm not gonna get the name for you.
Her first name is Marilee, but
Yeah.
I can't remember her.
She does own other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get a flyer for you before you leave, and information should.
But if you Google the sanctuary Clear Lake, you get it 2
I
inch.
wanna see if they'll let us put flyers in there. 'Cause they gotta, if they're gonna come and stay for a few days or a week, I mean, I know they're coming to your museum, but they gotta have other stuff to do too, I would think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
I think oftentimes that it would be, like as mentioned, a family reunion or some sort of a business retreat, which they would still have time to go do other things, but,
Quilting, they had like
They have,
quilting.
arts or crafts weekends where you can bring if you're a scrapbooker or
Yeah.
a quilter or whatever, they set you up with tables to
And
do your thing for the weekend, and it's very reasonably priced.
the old sanctuary is it's a three-story, 3 stories to the building, to the open space that used to be the sanctuary.
And our park down to the lake was kind of a hidden resource that was just pretty much local for years, and we made the mistake of advertising on the internet. And now our locals are upset because we got out-of-towners coming in and they can't get a space down there during the summer unless they sign up for it pretty early in the game, so.
How many spaces do you have?
Pardon?
Okay, how many spaces is there available?
I should know that too, do you know?
I think it's 34
Yeah,
camping
yeah.
spaces, camper-wise, and then they've got a dozen tent-wise.
Yeah, they got 10 pop-up area and then an area for pretty good sized, what do you call them? Motor homes or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so anyway, there again, we've taken a little bit of criticism there from the locals because we did too good job of advertising, I guess. Very picturesque, and it's understandable why people like going there.
Yes.
So what events does Clear Lake put on during the year, and how are you involved in them?
The thing coming up at the end of the last full weekend in June is Clear Lake Heritage Days. And I would say our involvement is somewhat minimal. I mean, we have the museum open because there's a lot of people in town. It all happens up on what we call Main Street. It's named something else, but it's all up there and involves some bands and beverages and things like that. The nonprofits typically will make a good share of their budget during Clear Lake Days selling. Our FFA alumni sells cheese curds, and there's people that come to town just because we have been doing that for, close to 50 and 40 years probably.
We work with the Civic and Commerce folks here, and one thing that we're doing for them is we're developing like a dozen different exhibits and displays, historical related things. And this room here will have about 5 of those displays, and the museum will be open. And there's been a lot of upgrades in the museum here this past year, so people that haven't been in there for a while will see that. So, and some of the stores are going to have a lot of history background, are going to have their own exhibits. So it's about a dozen things, additional things for people to see when they come into Heritage Days.
Because this is our sesquicentennial now,
150
so.
years.
And there's a little fuzzy line between the community center and the museum in that there are historical things on display here. In many ways, it's because it's the handicapped accessible way of showing people some things, and also just because many of the people on one board are on the other board, and it's very much a cooperative venture. Otherwise, they had a kickoff to summer in the park last weekend. Prior to that, there was the Civic and Commerce had their demolition derby, which they used to hold during Clear Lake Days, but the volunteers get stretched so thin because of all of the things going on that they move that ahead of time, and that seems to have worked out real well because you get the crowd in for that and as a whole separate activity. Other things that we have, again, Clear Lake Days, Heritage Days is the biggest thing. I think that is primarily it.
And Clear Lake, we didn't get through downtown Main Street on our way in, but it has grocery stores and hardware stores and everything?
We have got Nielsen's, N-I-L-S-S-E-N, Nielsen's. They opened up a grocery store in town here in 1903 and never left. And it's, I don't know, 4th, 5th generation of that family with the same last name still running it. Plus, the entrepreneur that generation is, they own Dick's in Amory, and they own Nielsen's in Cumberland, and Nielsen's in Glenwood City, and if there's a Dick's, it's theirs. It's just kind of.
Wayne's grocery stores up in your area.
Yeah, they're into that.
3 of those.
So that grocery store has always been a big part of the town, and it's always been a good. They would, back even before they built the place that they're in now, meats and meat cutting and stuff was a huge part of their business. It has been since.
So your competition for the big box stores is New Richmond? Is that the closest
New
one?
Richmond and Rice Lake are the great, and St. Croix Falls would be the 3 different
Yeah.
directions people.
Those of us up by St. Croix Falls lost a lot of our businesses when the stuff on Highway 8 opened.
Oh, I bet.
And
So that's the food part. I mean, that's been good, and we're real proud of that. The other one is, so from the history standpoint, these 2 brothers, C.J.E. Nielsen and his brother T.S. Nielsen, built a department store in what year, 1911 or 12 or something?
Yeah, 1912.
So they got started in the food business in 1903, but they built like a department store with a wall between them, that one part was the food, good things to eat and wear, since 1903 was their motto, and the other was the hardware store. The hardware store now is what's true value, so we've had 2 hardware stores in my time here, but there's one now, and it's True Value, and they can compete with the big box store, in my opinion, because they've got the service and knowledge to go with it. So people come here. I mean, a couple of things they're known for is their Milwaukee Day sales. It's a phenomenon to get into the store on their Milwaukee Day sales, because it's just that big a deal. And they're knowledgeable and servicing, and so people will buy here. I don't know how the price compares, but they'll buy here because they know they're going to get the service and help that they need if there's a problem with it. So, another brag. Otherwise, up and down Main Street, it's largely business that don't need this sidewalk traffic. Like the last one to move into Clear Lake is the business that does building inspection. I don't know if I can give all the names, not that there's any height, I just mean I don't know the business that well. But if you want your building inspected because you're going through the process of a new house or something like that, you know, you go online and you get the permit, or you work towards a permit, they move from Amory to a Main Street place. Otherwise, I mean, what,
There's the clinic
Yep.
that's associated with the Amory Hospital. And we have a wonderful physical therapy office and
chiropractors,
chiropractors and,
and a couple bars.
yeah,
Can't
and
tell my
with
story.
restaurants.
I think they look like they're into stories, I hope.
So it's, okay, go ahead.
My brother and I, our parents owned the Midway Bar, and if they were still operating today, if somebody fell off the bar stool, they could be taken to the clinic in one corner of the street. And if they needed rehab, they can go to the other side of the street. So they would have prime location now, but we didn't have it back in those days.
Our bank came out of the Bank of Baldwin. We had a Bank of Clear Lake that was in business. I think they started in 1903 too. And then it had some sell over, it became the Landmark Bank, became F&M, became Citizens, and then the last one here, whichever brand that was, actually closed the door and said, everybody take your stuff, and we're locking their doors, and you know, and we're not transferring to the next banking business. So we were without a bank for a while, and then Wisconsin and in Amory was, I think, was the primary beneficiary of the closed banking here. But then Bank of Baldwin, which is now known as Pillar, and they're up in Balsam Lake as well. They bought the building and opened it up, so we have a banking business in town where we didn't for a little while. Yes.
One more.
Yeah. If there's
School,
nothing
school enrollment trends.
downward. You know, in my time here teaching, we've had classes in the 70s. You guys can tell about whatever numbers you had back in your era, but I came in again in 77, class of 78 was my first one, and up into the 70s. Now it's in the 30s. And there are some, I'm told, grade school classes like kindergarten that's down into the 20s. So, yeah, so that's the trend with kids. And that's probably somewhat to the fact that housing is short, and if you stay here and your kids grew up and left and you.
Smaller families.
Yeah, yeah.
Back in your years, there was farmers all over the place.
Yeah,
So there was bigger families and stuff.
yeah. And like was typical, there's as many cows in Clear Lake School District now as there was then, only they're located on 3 or 4. We've only got 5 dairy farms left in the school district, whereas when my first year teaching, there were 28 28 seniors in my class, and I would guess that at least 25 of them came from different dairy farms in our school district. So, yeah, the layout of things is a whole lot different now than it was then.
It's been mentioned several times, but housing has been the biggest restriction. We've had a fair amount of industry here compared to other small towns in Polk County. But people have to drive 30, 40 miles to come in to work here, and there's just no place to buy a home, and there's no place to rent, and that's really, I think, the biggest problem with us not getting enough folks here, so.
That's a common problem all over.
I think it
That
is.
and daycare are the 2 things. Should just did a thing where they convinced the developer to come in, they put in a water tower, like you guys are talking about. They did, the whole thing, and they're putting in, I can't even remember how many units, a lot, and to where it could bring hundreds of people, because there will be housing.
Right.
All over the, I know Barron County is
And I think that's pretty common all over the United
Yeah.
States.
It's to convince a developer to come in and develop.
There's a kind of an interesting thing over where I am from, up by northwest part of Polk County, Cushing. We have a lot of housing, but an awful lot of it is large farmhouses with 1 or maybe 2 old people or a widow
Yeah.
in there that soon will be on the market. But the question is do people want to buy a older house with some land with it or not? I think probably where we are, we're close enough to Twin Cities. A lot of folks live and drive in an hour each day and back. But I don't know, probably here you have maybe the same situation, lots of large houses with one or two people.
I keep telling people that, people my age, I'm 80, normally we've been dead 10 years ago and that opened up housing. We're sticking around these houses pretty late in our lives in the Clear Lake here. We would probably best if we just moved on to the next world, so we open up a house for somebody to live.
Although that did happen, we have a place called, just on Double J heading out of town, called Bridgeview, which is it's a unique kind of, unique organization, as it's set up more or less as a cooperative. It has a unique business arrangement, and it was the United Covenant Church that had some involvement in getting it going. But that has, I don't know, how many apartments do you think are up in? They've gone through 3 different building phases to the where they're, but there's probably 50, 60?
I would think.
So 50, 60 families sold the farmhouse and sold, or their house in town and moved up there. So that did open up some housing for a while, but now that's full and there's a waiting list to get into it, so. So,
They have a project in St. Croix Falls with Impact 7. They put up 40 houses,
oh,
and they'll be renting them. And there's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom. And then they bought there is more additional land for another 40 houses.
Wow.
And they're very nice, and they came along really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they were put up fast, and
what side of St. Croix Falls?
it would be on the, where are we at?
Up on top of the hill.
Yeah.
Not too far from the fairgrounds
Oh,
area.
okay.
Up by the hospital up in there,
Well-
That's it.
farther back than that.
So
Yeah.
it's 10:40, we probably better get on.
Yeah, I have to leave at like 11:15, and there's a bunch of stuff that my name's on here.
All
so
right.
if I mean, like, we can skip back to it or whatever, but yeah.
No, I think
there's
we
nothing that
I appreciate you asking questions about the town. So we're up to the American 250 project, and I guess Russ is gonna talk about it.
Yeah, and we, last meeting, we decided not to do it, so that's not necessary on that
Okay, that's
list.
quick. Then let's talk about the joint event ideas. Any,
Well, that's the thing, this has been on the agenda for, I don't know, at least since I started coming to these, so about 2 years or more, so I don't know, like, this has just been a recurring, like, a standing agenda item, so
Okay.
if this is something that people are just not entirely sure that we're gonna be able to do, like, a larger partnership, then, you know, we can certainly just kind of think about removing this and, you know, just maybe more of keeping each other informed about upcoming events.
The
But
idea behind it was that we were thinking maybe there would be, like, if we had different events at different ones, that we
Yeah.
could either support each other by going to each other's events, or we could have a bus tour that went, and then we could have applied for a GEM grant, but now it's even getting short on that.
yeah, I don't know if they're even doing a lot of funding for that.
No, they still are, we just had the guy there this week. He just showed up Thursday at our door. Seriously, the guy from Wisconsin Tourism just came in and said, I had a meeting canceled, so I came here. And they are doing grants. But I don't know how quickly we could, if we don't have a plan yet, we have to have a plan and apply to get the money for next year. So unless today, or in the very near future, somebody here said, let's do this, I don't know what we would, I don't know that we've talked about the bus thing for quite a while, not just for America 250, but for other things, but we've never really come up with a good plan. Anybody here have any ideas or suggestions?
I think the issue that comes up is just space, like not space, but distance. Because there's a place that just opened up in Balsam Lake. It's like they have the trolley. They got an old trolley, and so they fixed it up, and so they're doing trolley tours. But they're geographically limited to pretty much like just Polk County, or that's what they're trying to do, just to keep it like, you know, at their startup. Which, I mean, it sounds like a great, you know, especially for us to utilize from the Polk County area. You know, we can say, oh yeah, come take museum tours, and you know, on a weekend or something like that. But yeah, unfortunately, they won't really go over to Barron. I might be able to convince them, since it's not that much farther. But they have like a limit of like, you know, 60 miles. They don't want to go up outside of that. But, yeah, I think that would be kind of the only thing would be, yeah, you could potentially work on finding something to pay them for, but I think they're also trying to get a lot of money from the wineries, you know? Doing more of those partnerships with those kind of things.
So another thing that would be an idea would be to, like if we took, like, say, one Saturday each month or 4 Saturdays in 1 month and said, okay, these 6 museums are going to be doing something and then the next time these ones are and then these ones are, and we could put a plan together that people could visit all of the museums in northwest Wisconsin in the summer of 2026. But again, like I said, unless somebody has a specific plan, so if you have something, speak up now, or even a thought that we could build on.
I have a thought, but it probably can't sleep. I think it'd be nice to have a brochure of the round robin, like, you know, the different societies in this area.
Yeah,
We do have.
we have the passport.
Oh, you have that?
Yeah, I've sent it out a few times, and I've said just if anybody has updates or anything like that, and I sent it out to the whole group, and I said, look, if you want to even be included on it, you need to respond to me, and so, so yeah, we can continue to push that a little bit.
Because we're all
more.
printing our own, so it,
Yeah.
different ones that they wanna be, they could all still give her, I think, give her your information, you could get included on it, then she'll send it out to everybody, you print it out. We hand it out at the gate and they get, if they punch it, go to
I think it's 6.
6 ones, then we give them
Like a prize, or like, you know, something from like, so
a reward.
if, yeah, if they've been to 5 others and I'm the 6th stop, then they can pick something from like our gift shop, and they can, you know, something like that, so. Like other people, I think, have more plans of like, it's something very specific, whereas I'm trying to get rid of things in my gift shop so I can make room for new stuff, so it's just sort of, take what you want. So, I mean, I've had the same one sitting out to talk to people about for probably close to 6 months now, just so it's there and nobody takes it, so, I mean, that's something we can also do too, is just really push that. We could make something like a special America 250 one, like just for next year, that includes dates of special events. Right, because I mean, Balsam Lake always does Freedom Fest. You guys do your Strawberry Shortcake Days, like, Russ, I think you guys usually have something in Cushing, like at least.
Geez, you have a River Road Ramble?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that, that's maybe like a special events for America 250, like just for next year, if people wanna do that. And then kind of continue with like, you know, the other
So,
transport. But
If each organization plans a big event for America 250, we could put that
Yeah.
out on it. Like, I know we're doing a big birthday party.
yeah, that's what we're doing, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, but then again, it's, yeah, if it's tied in with something else, like, cause again, we usually tie ours in with Freedom Fest, then it's not an extra thing that we have to do. Like outside of the weekend, there's already gonna be people there, so we might as well piggyback on it. So yeah, I mean, I can certainly work on just creating like one for next year only, like a special passport for America 250 in 2026. And so that way, if you have special, like Clear Lake Heritage Days, right, like for next year, if you like know those dates, if you know you're doing something specific on one or both of those days, send that to me and I can include that in that passport. And let me know if there's any cost associated with it, just because I like to kind of tell people up front, you know. So, like, because with our passport right now, I just have a note that says every admission is free unless otherwise noted, things like that. So, yeah, I can create like a special America 250 passport at least. Because then maybe that's an easier way to do it, right? We're not trying to pay, like, we're not trying to coordinate buses and this, that, and the other thing. It's just, hey, everybody, you have this schedule, you have the option to go to these places in northwest Wisconsin. And maybe if you guys want to, you can create your own kind of special gift that they get once they punch all 6 or, you know, whatever, 6 stops.
So I've been toying with this idea, and maybe you guys would like this idea or not, but my thought was that if people go to the 6 museums, that we would, the Pioneer Village would offer a family season pass for the prize for the sixth thing. So it would save you giving them something, or you could give them something too, but, I don't know if you guys would feel it would take away from your museums or not. The reason I think that people might like it is because we have a lot of events, a lot of different things for them to do, especially for a family over the course of the summer.
Seems like quite a gift. Prize to
$60
get.
is what it would cost
Yeah.
them to purchase it, but it really wouldn't cost us anything. And, you know, it might encourage more people to, I mean, because otherwise we give out, what do we give out? I think one year we gave out a magnet, something like that, it was nothing.
Would that be for 2027 or for the current year?
Or that'd just be
I
like
guess,
your regular
yeah.
passport kind of a thing, I mean.
It'd probably have to be for
The pass, I mean,
2027
oh, yeah,
by the time, if
Yeah.
we're offering it. I don't care if we did it this year even, but it wouldn't be on the brochure already,
Right. I mean, yeah, again, I can always change that, but then again, I have to send it out to folks, so we just have to remember things. But,
So I don't care what way you wanna do it.
Is your passport for the whole year, anytime we visit?
it's basically whenever, like, it's, you know, so that's why if people have updates, they need to send it to me, and I'll make the updates, and then I'll send it back out.
So some are open year round and some aren't, but, whatever way you guys wanted to do it would be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because
could
it could
have
be
like
for
a,
that calendar year.
yeah, I could have like a cutoff to where like, or a calendar year, or it could be like, you know, summer to summer type of a thing, you know, May 25 to May 26, like that could be the year.
I think that'd be quite an incentive to try to hit them, if that was the gift they got.
Well, and it gets them to, yeah, again, you have to visit 500 places before they come to you, you know, so I mean, yeah, it gets
But they
people
could
to-
even get it from yours, because if you let me know, it's easy to
Yeah,
mail.
sure.
pass.
Yeah.
So it could be whatever order, we don't even have to be one of the six.
Sure.
There are already some things that we do together, or try to do together, like the Polk County Fair, the old schoolhouse, that we ask all of the county museum, Polk County museums to put a display and stuff, and we could aim our theme next year at the 250th anniversary, and maybe try to get something from the different groups. It's also something that I think we should do, is talk to places like the county fairs and say, why don't you think of your theme for next year, America 250, and try to get the organizations that are already doing events to slant them with that emphasis. And I think that they probably wouldn't be a problem as long as we got to them now and suggested that's a really good theme for next year. Then we could probably participate in things with the theme that we're trying to push anyway.
It's a good idea.
Yes, I mean, well, yeah, that ties into the passport program, so yeah, I will work on, I guess, a draft of like a special passport for 2026, and again, if you have any updates, and if people want to kind of go with the free family pass, is it free family pass, what, yeah, send me the language and I'll add it in there, to the current passport, and I can put like a caveat in there that like it'll start, whatever time frame, if you don't want it to start right away.
Well, we don't care when it starts, but what they were asking was because by the time they visit six,
Yeah,
we'll be quite a ways into the summer.
Yeah.
probably.
yeah,
So then they wouldn't get much of a prize if they get it in August.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I could certainly send it out next year, or we could certainly start that next year, if I can hold off on
Or we
it.
can start it this year and it could be 4 next year, any
Yeah.
way you wanna do it,
Yeah.
doesn't matter to me.
So I'm going to continue on my point before. Can we draft some kind of a paragraph or something that we can use then to send to any of the organizations that are doing something in 2026, events like Frederick Family Days, and that would suggest that they consider including the 250th anniversary of the country in that event? Then, so we have canned one, we can just
Oh, like to your chamber.
send it out to everybody that has a festival or something, or does an event, and say, okay, consider including this because it's a really big deal.
Sounds like you're volunteering, Ross.
Well, I'm not sure, I'm looking for someone to say, yes, that we should probably do that.
I think it's a great idea, and I think that if you had something in print, it's easy to get, I know people on the Polk County Fair Board, and I mean, to get something to them, just to speak to them without having that thing to hand to them, it might not go as
Yeah,
far, but
if you send them something to the secretary of the group, then it gets forced to go in front of the board meeting.
yeah.
Or even your local town government or city government or something, say, what are you gonna do? Included in there should be a question, you should do something, and what might be, you know, sort of a encouragement, and then also asking them to follow through. There was a big deal with the bicentennial. They took over the fairgrounds for an event that organized up in the county. Rosalie remembers that, right? You were involved in that. You did that, maybe.
50 years for Polk County. It went all day, and we had the remarks, you should have made it 3 days. Yeah, we had so many things going on.
Oh, cool.
We had the President Polk came and did a speech. That was the introduction under the big white tent. And then we had all kinds of dancing, and we had a style show that started in 1853 through the present.
Oh, wow.
And that was so great. It was a lot of fun. But we had a good volunteer group. That's the important thing. Yeah, it was really, they did take a video, but I never saw it.
It's on the YouTube.
Is
Is that one of the ones that I gave you?
I think it's on the county's, your YouTube,
Yeah.
Polk County
I'd like to see
YouTube's
that.
channel. We had a long VHS tape of it that we converted.
So are you looking for some action before we move on?
Yeah, okay, so why don't I just volunteer, instead of Brenna volunteering for everything, to write up something and I'll send it out, or you can send it out, Brenna, to the list.
Yeah.
And just see comments on that and decide if we can use it for sending it out to everything we can think of, anybody that does anything.
So that kind of sounds like the way, Aquafest in Rice Lake does their thing, is like, we had an event the same weekend as Aquafest, so about 4 or 5 years ago, we just joined up and said, okay, now instead of it being our flea market, it's our Aquafest flea market, and we make sure it's the right weekend. And then they coordinate it all, and they do all the advertising, and maybe this group, of course, this group doesn't have any money, but maybe we could at least do social media advertising and kind of coordinate for the organizations. Maybe within our counties might make more sense though, huh?
Probably, I mean, just cross county.
Yeah, and the financial sources could be things like American Legion or something, because they generally I think would be pretty good for celebrating America's birthday.
I love going with Aquafest because then, yeah, you have to go to a couple committee meetings, which now I've had somebody else go the last 2 years. But then we get radio interviews. We're on 3 different radio stations. They're not very long, but they're still 3 different radio stations that you're on about it. They put out posters. It's on radio advertising. It's in all the newspapers, and we don't have to do any of that. It's just been a really nice thing for us. So I could see where people would, want to get on the bandwagon and join if we do that.
I second Russ's volunteering to write that up.
I'll ask ChatGPT to do it for me.
Well, hearing no opposition, I think we're full.
See, is anybody taking minutes?
Oh, that's right.
It's your camera.
Yeah, I was gonna say, usually the Diana from
Yeah, she can
Amory.
take it.
So what I'll do is I'll give her this and tell her, now you take the minutes as you watch it.
That's what I was thinking.
She can't get out of it.
That'll teach her to, yeah. So Brenda, are you then done with everything about the passport?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, all, the passport was always just kind of a standing thing, so yeah, any updates that you want on the general passport, send them to me, and then I'll work on doing a draft for the actual, like, America 250 kind of event-specific passport. So if you know of your events for next year that you've already planned, send them to me. If you're not sure yet, that's totally fine. I'm not gonna send it out right away anyway, so.
Wouldn't it be great idea, you know, it's like, all of you are like an umbrella, and Pioneer Museum would do a big thing with your office fest, and then yours, your place, and then you with the Gaylord Highway celebrating a yellow ribbon or something, so you have an umbrella, and you put it out on Facebook, as all of us doing something for the 250th year,
We could stop
at
traffic,
different times.
have a ribbon cutting. On a Friday, the traffic
Yeah,
would be backed up to Turtle Lake from here. And on Sunday, it'd be backed up to Turtle Lake.
Friday, it's the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Bad attention.
All right then, we'll move on to the Northern Wisconsin Heritage Council, Andy and Brenna.
We had a meeting in Pioneer Village, because most of the meetings have all been up towards Eagle River, so they're trying to disperse it more so that more people could attend. Unfortunately, we still didn't have very good attendance.
Made it.
I hope you were there. I can't even remember what we all talked about.
Well, so they made their Clio, remember we talked about this before, the Clio website, right? So their online tour system, they went live with it just after our meeting. But they had already been talking about it. Without it being live, they already had over 35,000 hits from people who just wanted to take various tours. So now that it's live, I haven't checked before I came in, but now that it's live, I'm assuming they're getting more hits. We technically are still part of, I don't know, wait, did ours renew, like the consortium as a membership? I know Polk County's gonna purchase one separately.
And we did too, and we asked if it could include the whole group again, and they said yes.
Okay, so yeah, so as a whole group, we still are part of, like, we're members, we can add tours to that Clio website, like you as your own, like, individual historical society can add through the Northwest Wisconsin Consortium. The big thing with their tours though is that it's like, it needs to have historical context, so it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna drop a point here and say this is the site of, you know, the first wooden house in Balsam Lake. Well, I need to back that up with actual research and cite my sources and all of the above, so otherwise, they're not gonna, like, it's not gonna get approved. And you also need to include, you know, whether or not it's a private residence or things like that. But
So they really want this group to get involved in that because they're trying to cover all of northern Wisconsin and they kind of need us. They've got tours, but they're all up in their area. And they want it to be all of, like, from Wausau, the northern third of the state. And so if we could get a few tours in there, if we could even, maybe for the semi-sesquicentennial, it would be really cool to have them around our whole area. But it doesn't have to be like say in our case, the first one that we're working on is just our museum itself, because this is what they had suggested to us. Just go around all of our historic buildings and do each one, consider that a spot on the tour. So you can go like from the church to the wood shop to the blacksmith, and then you talk about each one. But it could also be in your whole community, or, you know, maybe all of the old supper clubs around a lake could be, you know, because it could be a boat tour. It could be any kind of tour like that at all, as long as you're putting content in it. And they will help you get it online.
It is a phone app too, if you wanna download it. It's pretty cool. It's CLIO. And then you
The
can,
Clio, it's the Clio.
yeah, and you can open it, type in where you are, and it'll come up with
what's nearby?
what's nearby. And it'll tell you what, you know, what tours you can take, what historical buildings are close by.
So I know I'm volunteering for things that I shouldn't be, but because the Polk County Museum is gonna sign up as their own entity, we're gonna sign up and pay for our membership, in the next couple months. Sorry, but anybody that's in Polk County, if you want, like, I'm volunteering to include the Polk County information into the Clio, like, so you guys, I will send you like a template of like what needs to be included in each stop, like if you wanna put your museum on there, if you wanna put, Polk County has all those red signs through there, things like that. If you want something specific to be included on the website, I will send you the template of like what you need to fill out, and then you can send it back to me and I will work on putting it all on the website, so.
I'm not offering that.
I'm only doing it because, yeah, Polk County just decided we would our museum would pay for it, and mainly also because I don't wanna spend all the time doing my own individual research for every single stop, so I will happily add things, because I don't have time to do the individual research for everything, so. I will send you guys templates.
All right, thanks. Next is you two again on the Wisconsin Historical
So
Society.
That hasn't,
not
yeah.
on council anymore.
Nothing's happened really with that, aside from the fact that, so the Wisconsin, Council for Local History used to be its own separate 501c3. They used to, I think they still vote on the mini grants that are through the Historical Society. They used to fund the mini grants, right? But now, the Wisconsin Historical Society provides the funds for the mini grants, and the council basically just votes on like the dispersal of the funds and everything. They had been talking for some time about whether or not they want to stay as a separate 501c3, or if they wanted to dissolve and go back under as a committee within the Wisconsin Historical Society. So they voted for the second option, so they are now working on basically dissolving their nonprofit status and going back under as a committee for the Wisconsin Historical Society. Theoretically, we've been told like not much will change. However, the only representation that the council will have now going forward is basically just the president, I think, is just the one that's going to attend the actual like historical society meetings.
He'll be on the board of curators.
Yeah, and so he will still obviously relay all the information back to the rest of the council, and like I'm still the Northwest representative.
And all of you that are members of Wisconsin Historical Society are members then of
The council, yeah. So, yeah, if there's representative questions or concerns or issues or whatever, you can still bring them to me, and I can still bring them up at the Council for Local History meetings when we have them. I don't know when the next one is. And then it will still be discussed, but I don't know how, over in the long term, I don't know how things are going to be affected in terms of just meetings and representation and things like that. I know people in this area of Wisconsin have always kind of felt like they've been forgotten just because we're not Madison or Milwaukee. And we are, so so the more things you can bring up, I mean, I've brought it up in at least one meeting before just to tell them like, hey, we do exist, please don't, forget that we exist. So if there's things that you want to see from the Wisconsin Historical Society, from the council/committee, like, you can still tell me and I will still happily bring that up, so. What else can they do for you? I guess is the big thing. So.
All right, thank you. Moving into new business, then review of participating organizations and the contact information.
So, how Lady Smith used to come, but then Sister Cecilia passed away, so they're not getting the information anymore. Nancy Kraft asked if she could be the contact, and unfortunately, I thought I had her email in here. I have her phone number, but I do not have, and I can get you her email.
Okay, yeah, if you just want to send it to me when you have it, that'll be good. Yeah, that's the big thing. I know I asked in the past, if your historical society has a historical society email address, that's the preference that I have in terms of sending emails out, because things like this happen. If it's a personal email address, then usually what will happen is if that person doesn't have access to their email anymore, they pass away, they delete their account, well then that whole historical society is not getting emails. So if your historical society has a you know, a specific email address for your organization, I would like to send emails to that address preferably, because otherwise, yeah, we end up with things like people not.
But most of the historical societies or museums don't have paid employees, and it's still somebody's,
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah.
So I think it's good to get it to multiple.
Yeah, so I know, not Bruce,
Mike,
my
Emily,
Schultz,
Oh.
and wherever she is.
is she at Grantsburg?
No, she's Fort Fall
Yes,
One.
that's it.
Oh.
So she has me send it to, so they have their own like organization email address, but then she also asked me to send it to a couple other people as well, like a couple personal email addresses, just to make sure that everybody's bases are covered, and I have no problem doing that either. It's just, I would like to have at least some kind of like organizational email address for places, because on that list, I have I have somebody that's like Lizzie's Cakes. I don't know who that is. There's no. That's Jan Davis from Turtle Lake. Okay, and so yeah, I had no idea, and like there was no organization attached to the email address. I'm not comfortable sending out everybody's email addresses and say, who does this belong to? But I need some checks and balances, because I have no idea who's getting these email addresses at this point anymore. Like, I have no idea who's getting the emails. I have no idea who's like, yeah, I just have no clue who's affiliated with most of these random personal email addresses. So, if anybody knows anybody from specific organizations, have them email me with like a contact information for a specific person, and tell me who the organization is. Because otherwise I'm just gonna be like, I don't know who you are.
So it should be all on that one master list that we had?
It is, but it's not labeled with organizations
No,
necessarily.
on the original one, which I don't have a copy with me, but
Some of
it has
them,
the, almost all of them had the organization.
they did and they didn't, because then as things changed, then it just became like, oh, well, I wanna switch this out, but I'm not, with this one, I'm over here now, but then I'm also over here, and so then it's just become a disaster. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Museum updates. How's your museum doing so far?
Go ahead, Russ, you start.
We're doing fine. We're co-sponsoring, so this is really Clear Lake oriented thing. We're sponsoring with Frederick Historical Society the Stokely Van Camp's employee reunion on the 22nd during Frederick Family Days, because Frederick had a string bean or a green bean canning factory using bean pickers that some of them were from this area here, and some were after Chisholm Ryder had bought them out. But so that project is coming up on the 22nd. It's a potluck lunch in the afternoon, right across the street from across the lane railroad from the depot, and so we're excited about seeing what'll happen there. But by the way, I ran a Chisholm Ryder bean picker 4 summers as and earned my way through college by working 100 hours a week driving this machine up and down the bean fields. So I can thank the Paulson brothers for my income.
I'm gonna throw something back towards you, that it was the Chisholm Ryder folks that sued Paulson.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
For patent infringement, and made them vulnerable because they had to defend themselves. They won the lawsuit. They were not guilty of patent infringement, but they spent all that money to defend their patent, and that made them, it changed their history, I think, some because of all the money that had to be spent to do that. So, not so happy with Chisholm Ryder.
Well, eventually, though, it all went into Chisholm Ryder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Frederick Museum, even though Main Street in Frederick is torn up, all the traffic through town is being diverted through side streets. One of the diversions goes right by the depot. So we've been open 3 weekends. We've had people from 4 states besides Minnesota and Wisconsin sign the guest book already. So it's actually been pretty decent so far. Frederick Family Days, there's more events scheduled than ever, even though the town's torn up. So I think it's going to be a good year. You know, and going back to what Russ said, there's the three of us in the room from the area up there. 2 of the 3 worked for Stokely's. I'm probably the only person who never worked for Stokely's during that whole period of time. But they employed 600 people in the summer. It was a big operation. They had one part of a plant in Milltown, Wisconsin. But you know, Russ learned a lot of good life skills while he was working there. He, you know, like punching a time clock and showing up on time and stuff like that. You can see how he's ended up.
Well, you know, if you work 100 hours in a week, 7 days a week, 100 hours, you don't have any time to spend your money, so it all gets saved up for in the fall.
Yeah, the stories just from the whole thing with the reunion has been put together in about a month. And every time you mention it anywhere, people start listing off who in their family worked for Stokely's. Everybody's got a story. You know, Russ, we've got a person who's got to sort of be an MC at the event and give everybody 2 minutes before they get the hook, or we'll be there all night. But there are stories like an AWOL Marine who was working there under an assumed name, who they came and got out of the cook room one day and just MPs just hauled him right out of the building when they found out where he was. Just stuff like that. But where that all relates to our meeting today, we've found out as a museum the best things we do to get people in and around the area are special events like that. And fortunately, one of our members he's just built his 3rd quarter-scale Vietnam-era helicopter. And the first one he built was a Chinook. So a quarter-scale Chinook is 22 feet long. So we've had every time he's done that, we've had an event and advertised it and brought all sorts of people in around the depot on a Saturday like that. He did his 3rd one over winter, so sometime this summer. We haven't scheduled it yet, but we'll have just another special event like that, plus the Stokely's reunion and things like that. So that's what we find is the real draw to get people around the museum and involved with stuff like that, are just those special events. So that's kind of our report.
All right?
Was that a Stokely's mining operation here in Clear Lake?
I think it was, at one time it was.
Yeah.
It was like 3 different companies. But
Yeah. We had German prisoners of war
Yeah.
working on our peat back then.
Yeah,
And
Milltown did too.
Yes, that was pretty common back in the day, huh?
Yep.
And we've got one spoon in the museum that somebody found when they tore the vinery down, that had like, I don't know, a swastika on it or something indicating it was a German, you know, something that a prisoner had used.
We have a pea viner at the museum, and people ask me how, and I said, well, I think we just pulled the whole plant out, put it in a truck and haul it to the canning factory, and then it went through and it shelled them. Is that what it actually did? It separated the vines?
The viners were located all around the rural areas in the days when they didn't haul very far. And they brought the vines in, shelled them, and then the shelled peas were hauled to the factory
Okay,
to be
so
canned.
it worked the way I was thinking, but they didn't do it at the factory.
Well, they
did
had
it-
those at the factory too, but
Okay.
they located them all around. So
Good
there
to
was one
know.
by Cushing and one by Grantsburg, and the St. Croix Falls, the flea market down there, the pea picking flea market, that's a viner.
So then it must have been replaced with trucks that actually did that on them, because I can remember when I was a kid, Bucks, we'd go there when they were harvesting, and they would just take a bucket and scoop out and have a bucket full of peas, and it was already shelled, so it must have done.
Yeah, after it went through the machine called a viner.
But
which
this
is-
was, ours is a stationary, it's just this big machine that you would bring it to, as far as I can tell. I don't know how it ever would have, there's no wheels, there's no nothing. It just sits
Well,
on the
you
ground.
look at the Frederick History Facebook page, and I've been posting for a month or so all the details of everything, pictures, history, everything you want to know. But it's not the History Society's page. It's called like Frederick History or something like that.
Okay. Well, I am curious.
Or if you'd like a personal presentation on how to do
I worked at Friday's Canning Company down there for a couple of years. My job was the peas were into these here sorters, and they would fall through a screen depending upon size and stuff, about 3 different screens. And my job was to keep the top screen clean of all debris and stuff, so it wouldn't plug everything up. But I never did ask the question, what took the peas out of the pods before it got there? Was there a special machine or device for that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you just search on YouTube and ask, look for that, because now it's done with a combine that runs through the field, a giant one, and it just shells them. In go the vines and out comes vines with peas out of them. But it's sort of a crushing, snapping type thing.
Yeah, actually, the canning companies sold the pea vines to the farmers. Farmers used to come in and buy them.
So let's get out of let's get out of this canning factory mode and move on.
Any other museum on top?
Well, we should all.
Rosalie.
Me? Well, St. Croix is under a new board, and they're working really hard at trying to invent new ideas. So they're doing something like what you're doing, and travel museum, go to the schools and talk to the kids. And they recently also had a wonderful blogging program, and they brought it to adult meeting, and then they also brought it to 4th graders. Oh, cool. They went there to the 4th grade classrooms and did it. So they want to incorporate that, or something similar to the history on the river every year.
That's great.
And of course, I am not on the board, but I'm a curator, so we've been doing digitizing and trying to organize what we have there and what was gifted by who, which is a tremendous job. And right now we were searching for titles and categories, which Brenda has 2 wonderful books. Museum, which is an assessment book. And it has categories on the left side. I remember all this.
Yeah.
So, so we'd like to probably make a photograph of that and send it to us, if you would share it.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing there. And we're not really open because we don't have volunteers. So, but it's something I have been working hard on. And we would actually try and open at the same time the businesses have their celebration, you know. And so we have done that. We did a Memorial Day with the 3 Civil War Rebel Planet 2. So it's kind of like starting over again. So
That's kind of fun that way.
it is.
Invent yourself.
It's, like I say, a very new and very young group. And they're very interested in the downtown St. Croix history, so that's a big benefit.
Where's your museum?
It's on Washington Street, the main street, it's 106. It was a land and title business.
Oh.
It was run by, excuse me, Harry Baker, and his father, Joseph Stanley Baker, was a general in the Civil War.
Oh.
And he turned the business over to Harry, which he worked there till he was 95 years old. And the building is in its best aesthetic condition, inside and out. It was about, how many years ago, they, excuse me, they renovated it and restored it to its original. The floors are originals, the woodwork is original. They even have the radiators, the water heat, and the boiler. It's all original. And it's quite a quaint building.
Do you guys have a Facebook page?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
just St. Croix Falls?
St. Clair Falls Historical Society.
Historic, okay.
Yeah.
Because
And a web page.
if you put out a call for volunteers, I mean, that's something I'm sure we could you know, because we have people who follow, like, our Facebook page that don't live in the area, and people who would like to volunteer, but they can't drive an hour and a half or 2 hours to get to us, who might be interested in that information, and I'd put it on my personal one. So,
Just as a aside, that building that they're in originally was the Cushing Land Agency.
Hey. It was, but not for very long. But Sequoia is very interesting, I think, like every museum emphasizes the area. But we have the Blanding family that owned 400 acres. And they really did a lot to develop that area, as well as the Regal family with the first hospital was a 22-story house, or bedroom, and it was a three-story house, right? And that was the hospital, until they built it. So there's so much evidence and stuff. I think I better stop talking.
Another museum, anyone else? To share?
We just finished up school tours, we have 31 schools, about 2,500 kids. I don't know exactly how many kids, but I know it was more than that if you count the adults.
Oh, yeah.
And we had the governor come and visit in May, that was pretty interesting. And, I don't know, this first day camp starts tomorrow. Nothing, we have some new exhibits. This is Elise, she's the new assistant director.
Hello.
And a godsend. That's probably all I can think of.
So I gotta,
Oh, I do have something. We are finally getting our Native American village.
Oh,
It looks
yeah.
like this fall, we're hoping to have it mostly done. So we're very excited about that.
so I just had a question. Do you guys have an old-time sawmill there?
No, but we need one. Do you know where we could get one?
I know where you can get one with a $1,000 donation coming with it.
Yes, I've been talking to him about that. Maybe. Thank you.
Sarah's been working with local schools too.
Yes, like what you said, we have a gal that's been going to the schools and doing special programming. She did it for Two Lakes for America, and something else she's been working on.
She's been working on the, like, mini
She's been-
reports. The kids do little mini reports on people.
Famous people from Wisconsin.
Famous people from Wisconsin, and then she's gonna put them up in her school, in her schoolhouse.
She's assigning each student a person and with the picture, and then they find out information about them and put it up.
And then they can come visit it and be like, I did that, which is cool.
Yeah.
You know, it was several years ago, one of our teachers, Joanne Peterson, who taught 4th grade, she did a book on generations, and she took different people that, like the post office man, and interviewed them, and then there was other general people, you know, that they would interview. And that she had the children actually pick out the questions.
Oh.
And it was so interesting. There was Willis Erickson and just several people. It was really exciting. And one of the questions Joanne was, I was just talking to her, she said, one of the questions the 4th graders asked is, do you get scared at night when it's dark?
That's cute.
And it was really interesting. And one other question she said, gentlemen started to cry over it. And, you know, got very emotional, but it was so meaningful. The next time I come, I'll bring that, because that would be so neat for teachers to do that as a project. I'm sorry I interrupted
No,
you,
I
but I
was
was
done
just
anyway.
wanting to share that with you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a good share.
Yeah, so Polk County Museum, our second year of having year-round hours. We also just finished school tours, although I have another series of summer school tours that are coming over the next 3 weeks. So that'll be fun. I've got partnerships with a few different area libraries for both story times and then summer reading activities, or their the summer reading program. So each year the Wills basically will set like a theme, and so then they partner with different places around the area. And so yeah, the theme this year is Color Your World. So I'm doing activities with kids at a couple different libraries about like immigrant art. So we're gonna have them do rose mauling. Very loose rose mulling. I spent probably 2 hours cutting out cardboard, like trace patterns for kids. It's a nightmare. I don't recommend cutting cardboard, but, so yeah, so that'll be fun. Over the summer, obviously we have Freedom Fest coming up. And I am just finishing up education boxes that can be checked out to different like local schools so kids can learn about specific parts of the area's history. Although now that all of the education standards will likely be changed, I have to redo a bunch of those. What else? Oh, I'm working on a kid's book that hopefully I can sell next year. So it'll be just a kid's book about like the museum's history and like the exhibits and little fun facts about it. But then I'm using artwork that kids have actually done as like part of a little like art contest when they come visit the museum for their tours. So I just have to kind of add in some of those. So far, it's basically just from one school because the other schools were like, oh, we don't have time to participate. So we'll see if maybe next year if I can get a few more added in. I have an intern now who is doing all of my digitization stuff. So then we're partnering with Recollection Wisconsin, so we won't have to host anything that's digitized. I mean, we'll obviously have to save it, but it will be hosted through them. Thankfully, so that then it'll also be tied to our website. So if people want questions about, if they have questions about certain, we're starting with towns and villages. So if they have questions about Alden Township, for example, they can look through Recollection Wisconsin and what we add if they want to see photos or documents or things like that. So that student will be here probably through the end of July. So.
Is she from River Falls?
He's from Eau Claire, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
So.
Nice.
So yeah, he's only here 2 days a week because he has to drive back and forth. And I was like, are you sure? Like you don't, I was like, you can find another way to do it. He's like, no, 2 days a week. And so I think he's working 8 hours, and unless I have a later meeting, he'll stay later too. So he's going up to like 10, 11 hours some days. So, which is fine because I'm sure for him, he's just like, I want my hours and I'm done. So.
Is that a paid position? Or?
Yeah, so we were generously gifted, basically somebody put a trust together with St. Croix Valley Foundation, and so every year we get the interest off of that, and that's enough to pay for an intern. And she also made a separate donation for us to purchase like a nice overhead scanner. It wasn't really that expensive either, but it's like a nice overhead scanner and store like, terabyte, 2 terabyte storage, discs and things like that. So, but yeah, so we don't have to pay for the intern. So, yeah.
Brenda, Rosalie, Tim, and Roxanne and William are normal volunteers at the schoolhouse for taking shifts.
Oh
So-
yeah, I was gonna send that to you guys.
So you guys have to tell her when you can come in.
William already signed up.
Okay. And that, we're looking for people again for the
Yeah, that was.
schoolhouse and the fairgrounds.
I'll send it.
So
to you.
who's doing Clear Lake?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
see.
yes.
Who's doing? Oh,
Your
where they
updates.
talk?
Yeah.
Well, any one of you want to say something? I've talked a lot.
Keep on talking.
Can I ask, will you send it to Shayla?
Yeah, I have that. Okay.
Oh, you know what, all of you guys, except the 2 of us are Polk County this time.
Yeah,
We don't have any Burnett County.
Pat couldn't make it from Birchwood. Bruce.
We don't have
couldn't
Ross
make it.
County.
So they could make it.
A lot of people.
I did at least get emails from them saying, we're so sorry we can't make it. So at least they did email, but yeah.
Oh, glad you crossed the border.
Thank you for having us.
Dawn has been working on a wedding dress display for the June is wedding month. And you want to say anything more about that?
I have, I think there's 7 wedding dresses that we have in the museum dating from like 1909 up to 1936. And I got 4 of them set up on mannequins at the top of the stairway up in the upper floor. The other 3 have been in the museum for a while, but and that was a fun project. I've thought about it for a couple years and I finally got it done.
As long as they don't be turned to for any textile related question or.
If you need mannequins too, just let me know.
Oh,
So, I have a lot that I'm not using, so.
I purchased a few
Oh,
and we
okay.
were donated
Yeah.
some as well.
Sure.
She's also the maker of that really good rhubarb bread over there.
Maybe a suggestion, we did that at Luck a few years ago, and at the same time, we had some of the really old dresses. I shouldn't say I did it, but whoever did it, but they also invited a bunch of the older women in the area to bring in their own wedding dress and then talk about their wedding and their dress, and that was kind of a nice event. So, I mean, that's one way of not only showing the old ones, but having some people telling about. And it was quite fun to listen to someone who said, well, 50 years ago I wore this dress and I got to, and explain what the wedding was.
One of the dresses, and it's absolutely pristine, I don't know, someone really took care in storing it, and it's from 1917. And it's a bridesmaid's dress. And the woman that wore it recalled going by sleigh to Prairie Farm to have the wedding photos taken, and how cold it was. And I thought, just think of that.
You know, the county museum has a man's wedding suit too.
I'm pulling it out for you.
Yeah, okay, next, Tuesday is it, at 1 o'clock?
Yes.
I'm giving a talk on the most famous person who ever lived in Polk County, George A. Nelson. Okay, and at the county museum, and his wedding suit is in a display case there, so
Oh,
I'm
I found
hoping,
a stool that he made too. He made a
I'm
stool
hoping
out
that
of-
we'll have that right next to me.
Why was he famous?
Why is he the most famous?
Yeah.
Well, how many other people ran for vice president of the United States of America?
With who? Who was this?
He's a
The
s-
socialist
He's a
ticket.
socialist, yeah.
But he was really a prominent national state. He was well, I don't want to, but I'm just giving a talk on his 2 years in the Yukon Gold Rush. He kept a diary of it, so it's really fascinating.
That is cool.
Also, Wendy dropped off just one flyer, but one of the things that our museum is doing is the 5 concert series at the bandstand, and this is the flyer if you want to take a picture of it or something, since I only have the one copy. I'll give it away, but if somebody else wants to see it.
Elvis was at our museum Saturday.
Well, you know,
There was a guy that looked just like Elvis,
Mhm.
everybody, he was dressed like him.
Fun fact, he's my third cousin.
The real Elvis
Yes,
or
the
the one
real one,
that
yeah.
showed up?
No, the real one, yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyone else? Another fun fact I like to throw out always about this, when you're in this room, you kind of think, well, why are the ceilings so, it's not very tall. This was actually, when the building was built in 1992, this is the ceiling of the gymnasium. And down below, where there's a fitness center now, that was the floor of the gymnasium. And this,
They added a
this
layer.
floor, yeah, they added a layer, when they built the new gymnasium. So things are a little short because it's, had to be doable.
That's cool.
Bill Sadler was the guy in town that was responsible for building nearly everything, and he did take that project on. Anything else? Social media.
Yeah, I'm frantically running out of time, so I think I will push this off till next time, which is totally fine, because Russ wanted to add his own 5-minute lightning session. But I actually have to leave, so just very curious, or very, very quickly, does September 9th work for the next meeting? Just so I can mark it down and I'm not lost. It's a Tuesday, so I know we moved this specific one to a Monday just because Tammy and I both had conflicts. But September 9th is that
Good for me.
Tuesday.
Sure.
Okay. And then, yeah, if anybody's interested in posting.
Yeah.
We were talking about maybe Frederick.
Okay.
Yeah, Tammy had talked to me just before the meeting, a year or so ago, we were gonna host a meeting up in Frederick, and I think the weather got bad and we moved it down to Luck.
Okay.
But in September, we should be able to do that again. We've got the Frederick Senior Community Center is just on the other side of the street, half a block away from the museum.
Okay.
So we can Let me check and make sure the 9th is available with them. I'll check this afternoon.
And then maybe we could get Grantsburg and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fort Follow-on and some of them again that
Yeah.
have been
Okay.
coming lately.
Yeah, if you just wanna let me know, then I will at least mark it for the future, but,
Yep.
yeah.
With that, Russ's lightning session.
Russ, your lightning session.
Well, all I was going to tell you is, we have this obsolete media lab in Cushing where we have all these old devices and we try to scan any negatives, glass negatives, slides,
Yes,
anything
thank you
you
for
can
that.
imagine, films, audio tapes, whatever. And one of the things I get really bored scanning multiple postcards or all these things. You can do them one at a time, so I don't like to do that. And I got a big scanner so I can put maybe 10 postcards on the screen at once and scan them. Of course, the problem is you don't really want to have an image with 10 of them on, so every time you want to pick one out, you have to go in, edit the big picture, cut out what you want, and do something with it. And so I got to thinking, well, surely there's some software that would do that. And there are a few that sort of claim to do it, but they're quite expensive and they don't really work, having tested them. So I thought, okay, my friend, the artificial intelligence program ChatGPT is pretty smart, and I wonder if it could do this for me. So I sat down. By the way, I pay $20 a month so I can have unlimited access to the brains that I don't use my own anymore. But anyway, so I asked it, I said, okay, I've got this. I'll give you an example. I put 20 35 millimeter slides on the flatbed scanner, kind that does the overhead light that'll do slides. But anyway, what comes out of that is an image that has 20 individual slides, white space a little bit around because I don't put them tight together, so they're outlined with white. The slide itself has cardboard, which comes in black because no light goes through, and then in the center is the 20 actual images. So I told it, okay.
We cover all kinds of stuff that has nothing to do with what you would think of the typical pioneers. And now with the Native Village, to me, it really gets confusing. In our logo, we need to change that. I think it's an arrowhead. And until now, we had very little Native American stuff, and it's really not something that I feel is appropriate for us to use, an arrowhead. But something that would be more inclusive. We dropped Barron County in most of our advertising because financially, we can't afford to rely on visitors from Barron County. We're at that awkward space between being a small museum and being a medium-sized museum. I actually looked that up the other day. It's $250,000 for your budget, and that's where we're at right now. We're at that, right on that line. So we have to bring more people in to keep us going, because it got to where the work was so much we needed more people. So we started bringing in people, but now it's a problem with our budget. So we need to draw from a bigger area. So it needs to sound like it's a bigger thing than what we've made it sound in the past. We get confused with museums all over the country that go by Pioneer Village. They'll call us when they're looking for Bakersfield, California. There's one in Canada that all of our Facebook stuff was getting mixed up with for a while. I mean, they're all over the place. There's little ones and big ones, and they call us and schedule field trips. We get all done with the scheduling, and then we realize, oh, well, but I noticed was the times where I'm like, why would your school still be here at 5 o'clock? I mean, don't they have to get home? Doesn't the bus have to get back to school before? But it's a different time zone, and they didn't realize it, and I didn't realize it. But anyway. Yeah. So we need a name that's more inclusive.
So, like St. Croix Valley is a very popular name for us over in our area. Blue Hills is an area. You can do geographical type names if you're interested in that. That's sort of easier,
Right.
especially if there's some name that's already well known. Like Blue Hills is probably pretty.
Ask ChatGPT.
I
Yeah, if you
did.
yeah.
Yeah, we were thinking about something with the red cedar.
Yeah, the
we were
River Valley, yeah, something
Bumping
like
that
that,
around for a while.
yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on it? I mean, if you guys wanna think about it and come with ideas.
That's a Cedar River that goes through there?
The Red
That's
Cedar
something
River.
Cedar River really.
Red Cedar, yeah. We also have talked about just northwest
Well,
Wisconsin.
the other route is like the stadiums and everything do, you find a sponsor and get big money for adding them as the name of it too. Like the,
Yeah,
I don't know what
hate that
the,
idea.
Jerome Turkey,
We
You
already
feel like
have
you're
it.
losing control of something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jerome Hall. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
you
hey,
guys think of any
RCU, you want a
ideas?
museum?
yeah, the RCU Museum of
Yeah.
Northern Wisconsin.
Isn't that nice?
So anyway, yeah, if you guys wanna think of something and see if you and I'm gonna continue with the ChatGPT.
It's totally fine.
But I haven't come up with anything really good so far from there either, so.
Are you looking for something exclusive to Barron County or?
No, we
We're-
want to
We have-
distance ourselves from Barron County. Northern Wisconsin, northwest Wisconsin, that would be good.
Well, we're in Indian Head country, and I don't know how many counties Indian Head country.
that's not being very favorably looked on anymore either.
Oh,
Indian
really?
Head, no.
Right.
Ice Age Trail Chapter just dropped that name, changed to Trap Rock Chapter instead of Indian Head Chapter. And down in Madison, they quit using Indian Head. When they referred to that chapter years ago, they just called it the Polk County Chapter,
Oh.
the Ice Age Trail.
Our neighbors, yeah, coming in. Stay away from that.
Come on, make up a new word.
Well, there's always the Indian words too. You can always, some Indian name. Saturday, Interstate Park had its 125th anniversary and they had a couple of voyageurs canoe in with their birch bark canoe and put on an afternoon presentation, which you can find on YouTube if you search on, well, it's on the YouTube. I put it out on YouTube, I videoed it, but they gave us a whole bunch of French and Indian words that were used by early trappers, and you know that. Logging is also a big thing too. Depends on, of course, I don't suppose you could use a logging theme unless you had a sawmill there.
I think we would need that, wouldn't we?
I've got a sawmill I'm trying to pawn off.
Maybe a native word for red cedar or something like that would be interesting.
Or I thought of something to do with wild rice, maybe, native word for, which is Monoman, which I didn't want it to be confused with Menominee,
Yeah,
but there could be some version of that.
I think even red cedar stuff would make people think of Menominee. At least that's where my mind goes when there's
Yeah,
a lot.
but why not Rice Lake? Because Rice Lake was Monoman, because that was named for the rice in the lake too.
But then
So
we
was
would
Prairie
assume
Rice
it's,
Lake.
yeah, we'd assume it's in Rice Lake then probably.
Well, also Prairie Rice Lake, that was supposedly the largest wild rice bed in the world, and that's just 3 miles from us.
Yeah.
Well, we're not changing our name.
When it became such a political issue, we were warriors, and we always had an Indian chief that had on our letter jackets. Well, we were allowed to keep the warriors, but we had to take the Indian heads off because warriors implies things beyond Indian culture. So maybe it's warrior country.
All right, well, are you done with your round? Is that it for you?
I think that's it, yeah.
Okay. Well, you're here. That was good. I don't know if you got anything else to say about what went well. We were glad to host it. We have food that you can eat before you go yet. What else went well?
We're gonna get a tour of the museum.
You're welcome to it. We're
You betcha.
prepared for that.
Okay.
You're not obligated, and there's no admission fee. What could be improved? Well, you could get a different guy up front. I think that would help.
I think it's sad that we only get so few of the museums represented.
There've been times when it's,
Probably the least I've seen.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why, because I don't know if
You
there's
know,
something going on.
was it the
or-
day? No, yeah, I don't know either, but,
Summer gets hard for everybody.
But we always meet in June every year.
I guess
I-
sometimes the quality is more important than the quantity.
So, one thing I was
Yeah.
talking to Elise on the way here is, I think, you know, we've tried these joint projects and they haven't worked out well. I think the networking is really good. The joint projects have not worked out well. And when we do like the mini conference, because it's very educational. But I think maybe we're not doing enough education at our meetings. Maybe if we had a little short, if we had different, even if it was just us, somebody researching, like, you know, the 5-minute lightning sessions, maybe we could have, I still like the lightning sessions, I still want us to do lightning sessions. But if we had somebody, like Russ is always giving us all this valuable information about something, and Brenna had something prepared for today. If we had a little bit longer, like a 15-minute, you know, could get into depth. You know, you guys had talked about, you were talking about exhibits, and you were talking about curating, and there's just different things, different topics that we could have a little educational thing on each time that we wouldn't necessarily take the time
Because even
ourselves.
like hearing your process of restoring those wedding dresses and having a little presentation, you know, something that you went into depth about, this is why I displayed them this way, and this is how I, you know, that's good information for all of us to have, you know, in case we decide to do something similar, or, you know,
And
something comes up in the future.
Sometimes we just don't have enough time even to get through the meeting for some reason, but other times, like today, we would have had time for something to.
So this past couple of weeks, I reached out to Brenna and was on loan to Polk County for her media exhibit for the summer. But at the depot, we have 3 old cases which use a very unique shelf bracket. If I had more shelf brackets, I could expand those cases. So I reached out to her and said, any chance you would have these kind of brackets at the museum? And she said, no, but I can reach out and network with other people. Now, what I found valuable today was when she said, I have lots of extra mannequins. We have lots of military uniforms. I'm currently working at a Veterans Corner because the American Legion and the auxiliary gave up their building, which they've had forever in Frederick. They just were getting smaller. They weren't like a lot of your bigger veterans chapters. All
We're going
have
through the same thing
buildings.
here, clearly.
Well, and they all have buildings that maybe have a bar attached, which enables them to remain more viable.
Sure.
So their building turned into the Arts Center, which is a wonderful addition to the community. They no longer have a home. So we have 2 of their old flags. Frederick is also home to a Thunderbird, a retired Thunderbird, who was also the person who's done the helicopters. His brother died in Vietnam shortly before he was due to come home. We have his Silver Star. We have another young man who did not make it home, who was highly decorated. So that's my corner I'm working on. I have a case, we have uniforms, I need mannequins. So I think that was valuable for me to know that maybe I can reach out to her for mannequins.
Yeah, that networking thing I think is invaluable.
Yeah, and we have, you know, we have women's mannequins because we had a Hagberg's department store that when they went out of business, somebody went in and said, hey, we could use some of your mannequins. But you generally did not put bib overalls on a men's mannequin. So, you know, that's a premium, is the men's.
We probably have a good contact for you. If you come over to our museum, our military room is in the basement, and there's a gentleman by the name of Doug and his wife Virginia Cahal, who have been very patriotic oriented, and they have a mannequin for every war that
And
that
that's,
we participated in along with the uniform that went along with it. They would be a good contact as far as finding a mannequin source.
It would be a purchase though, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds
Yeah.
like Brennan just.
well, and a lot of those things are,
Yeah,
but still, it would not have to be a period piece. I noticed you have actually something that would work greatly with Reel 1,
yeah.
but you have a graduation uniform on it, and it is one of the older style mannequins that would be great. But I mean, just that networking piece, I think, is really important, because we may have something that somebody else could use.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a lot of them. You're more interested in honoring some local veterans who were killed or whatever in the wartime, yeah.
So, one of the things that we do at Cushing, we're in small group, is insert ourselves into other people's events. And the one we just did at Memorial Day was, one of the cemeteries is really old on Wolf Creek Cemetery, and for 15 years we've picked a veteran in that cemetery to do research on. Then we've done our newsletter that quarter on that veteran and try to get relatives and them to come. And so this time we had a kind of a fun one. A guy that was from Estonia, had fled the communist takeover on through, got into one of these camps in Germany after the war, got sent to Luck as a displaced person, became an American citizen by joining the Korean War effort, and that made it so you could quickly get citizenship, and then lived in the area and had 8 children and that, and so that was our event. And for Memorial Day at Wolf Creek, probably because we have lunch at the church, it's a private, it's not a church cemetery, but there's one next to it. We have lunch there. We had 175 people out for that event, and probably 30 of them came just because they were remembering, because this guy had only died in like 1990, and a lot of people knew him. And that's an easy way to make yourself people publicly aware of you. In this case, it takes some research. So I visited some family members and got some pictures and things like that, and that. But that's sort of I like those ways of doing it, because you don't have to organize it yourself. You just are involved in it by adding some value or interest to the event, and then all these people get your newsletter and things like that too when they come. But
We've hit the noon mark. Anyone have anything else to bring up before we adjourn?
What do you guys think about that education thing? Do you want?
I think that's kind of, yeah, I think that's kind of a key thing.
Is there anybody here that would have a topic that they could and would want to research and talk about 15 minutes at the next meeting about?
Or know if somebody in your community that
so
would do
I
that.
guess maybe the thing is asking people what they'd like to have, rather than force feeding them. Ask them what they would really, if there was anything they're interested in.
Okay. What topics are you interested in?
Well, as you go through our museum, you'll probably come up with a few ideas on your own after you see some of the exhibits and some of the people and that sort of thing, so.
I'm interested in textile history, that's what I'm interested in.
What were you thinking of?
Your, my favorites, of course, I need to tell you this. There's a family in town here, his name is Chuck Clark, and he was instrumental in getting this museum off the ground. That was an old building with pigeons flying around and water was coming through the roof. And he was very close friends with Gaylord Nelson, governor, U.S. Senator, and also very close friends of Burley Banks, who's our Hall of Fame baseball pitcher. And he followed their careers and went to events with them, and he would go to the Baseball Hall of Fame every year at Cooperstown after Burley Grimes was enshrined in 1964, and got tons of autographs and baseball memorabilia. And you're gonna see some of that here in our museum, but his house is just loaded with baseball stuff. Now, if you're a baseball fan, you need to go visit him sometime. He's 91 and he's failing. He's getting a little older now. But he and his wife also are responsible for the Clear Lake Chronicle, our little monthly newspaper. So they were very proactive here in the community, and I just need to let you know that it's amazing how just a very few group of people, and I wasn't around at that time. Jim was a young puppy then when
But
pictures.
not here. I'm not from Clear Lake.
No, he's not from Clear Lake, but he was moved in as a teacher. And I don't know if you were initially involved with the museum or you stepped in shortly after they got to.
I was here I was involved when we were dedicated.
Yeah. But anyway, it was just a core group of people, and as I listened to you folks here sharing all these ideas, reality it is, if you're gonna take these ideas and put them in place, you're gonna have to come up with your little core group of people, you get together and decide what you wanna do. I've heard of such a wide range of ideas today, I don't have a clue how you would ever come to any kind of a consensus as to where you wanna go first. I think you need to decide that. Where do we want to go first? Do you want to start with something small or something big? But it's typical. It's wonderful exchange of ideas, but in order to put them into motion, you need a core group of people that get it going, like the Chuck Clark family was here in Clear Lake.
And at our meetings, Russ has always educated me on something that I knew nothing about, but I can use in art preservation and things like that. So whether it be on paper preservation or textiles or technology or things like that to me is a part of what I've always gained from coming to these meetings. Not always the history of the railroad or the logging or the whatever, but the fact that applying what somebody else has already learned to what we have.
The first time I met Dawn Peterson, she told me, I asked her what display was she working on. She said the millinery display, and I said, what has the woman got to do with grinding flour? Well, I found out different.
That millinery wasn't for that.
Okay.
So I guess if there was somebody in the since we're meeting there, if there was somebody in the Frederick area that you would talk to would be another way of going about that.
And it's pretty darn close to your area too, I mean.
No, I don't go out on speaking trips.
Because you're shy.
But you might even know someone else too when you're.
Well, it's always interesting to find some expert in something and have them come in and tell you about it. And so that's one of the things at the Luck Museum, because it's really small and we had, couldn't have, that you went in and saw the displays really, and that was it. And so we had to do a ongoing set of new displays pretty near every couple of months, and what we found out early on is there are all sorts of people who collect stuff and are knowledgeable about things, and so if you ask them to come in and you have a protected place where you can put their stuff, like I think maybe right now, I haven't been over there recently, but I think there's a bunch of toy tractors maybe again or something like that, but that brings in, if you're a huge place, I could go over to Pioneer Village all summer and wander around, still see something new. But at Cushing or Luck, it's a little different. Luck has an arrangement with the Danish American Museum in Iowa to get a display every summer from them. And that's just coming in now. I'm not even sure what it is this year, but that's good for a month or so of something different, really nice displays.
My list here is really not that long, but here's some things just from listening to you guys and just off the top of my head. But textile history, fundraising, diversity, equity, and inclusion, curating, digitizing, building memberships, Clio, writing Clio things,
items, traveling exhibits, collections, special events, just for some ideas. And I'm afraid if we leave, we won't follow through on this, we won't have anything for the next time. But if you guys especially want to try to think if there's someone there, and if anybody else has ideas of, maybe we can send over an email too.
Personally, I like to hear what new displays you're thinking about doing for either for this season or next season, like at the county museum. I forgot already what they said, but they had a couple of new things that they put out this year. That getting ideas of what people are doing, what kind of thing. Personally, I'm trying to figure out what we're gonna do for next year for the 250th country or anniversary thing. I just don't really have a good idea what we're going to do in our museum.
That would be a good topic. So, I don't think we're gonna come up with one right now, are we? So if you guys want to be thinking on it.
So that since there are no minutes taking this time, if you made a list of anything or that, you better send it to Brenna as part of, and I'll see if I can't get Diana to look at the video and take minutes.
Okay.
All right. Come in today, and the museum will be open if you want to head over. Stay as long as you want.
Very exhibit case. We'll go and listen to Killer Nelson.
Will we come back here this way? So I-
Yeah, we will. Yeah,
I'll leave my stuff on the.
yeah, just drop it on the desk there.
Yeah, I have to carry it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Bruce and Bernie Paul's little exhibit right here.
Hmm.
And if they wanted to, they could, if they wanted to go to this event that other folks are talking about, they could take this up and bring it along and use it as a little display.
Well, we would sure enjoy having them come.
Yeah, we'll see if we can't talk them
Didn't the
into it.
Paulson brothers do cannons?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they moved from beet pickers to cannons, you know, you
Yeah.
figure that one out.
They made a lot of them too.
Downstairs is the museum.
Yeah, this is the Gaylord Nelson room here, and like I said, Gaylord and Charles Clark were very close friends, and they communicated back and forth all the time. And most everything you see in here was donated to the museum by Gaylord Nelson himself. So, start out here, we talk about his time as governor here in the state. We got memorabilia from when he was a governor. And then on that wall, when he became a state senator. We just celebrated Earth Day here a couple of weeks ago, and the kids, the elementary kids have a contest. We picked 6 winners from 6 different grades there, and here at the elementary school, and these were the winners. So the winners get their art displayed here at the community center for the length of the season. So, and this is the Apostle Islands. He's responsible for the Apostle Islands being represented, and on the other side is his Earth Day display. This is Apostle Islands and things that he used as influence in getting them recognized. He knew all the people. Yeah. It's all the bills that he signed with the pens. He didn't have those auto arms that they got in at the White House. No, you got to do it by hand. Pens that we use to sign the bills that he put together.
That's nice. Gosh.
He won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And that picture right there.
Oh, yeah.
And this wall is dedicated to kind of the family thing, his parents and grandparents. The house is still in town here up on the north side.
Ralph Weber own it or someone?
Ralph lived in there, but Ralph is over in Amory now. Amory, Wisconsin, yeah. He's the bookbinder, you must know Ralph.
Yeah, but I worked at the county building and he
Oh.
had
Hello,
a
Gus.
sell. He came over and put us down to sell one.
Oh, really?
Sell, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And he was pretty much of an authority on that.
yeah. So, and this is kind of local memorabilia. He would be invited back every year to the Chuck Clark home, and they would have big parties for him and that sort of thing. This is a picture of Burley Grimes, the baseball player, and that's Gaylord there. And this is Charles Clark right there. At one of their big celebrations that they would put on every year. And of course, he won a lot of awards. They're all shown here. That's a chair that he sat in, I think, when he was in Congress. What does it say? Like, don't sit in it, I guess.
She said, it's fantastic.
So yeah, you could spend an awful lot of time in here. I know you don't have time to do it today, but stop by and get something.
Chance for you to get your graduation out of the village hall rather than out of the school building, if that's a detail you're interested in. Oh, okay.
And this room here is dedicated to our other celebrity, Burley Grimes, the last of the spitball pitchers.
Well, yeah, it could, depending on what
Let's see here.
they have it done,
Wow. Baseball.
Yeah.
They're nice, in perfect shape.
Yeah, this is when he was a high school kid. That's him in the lower left there. And he was on the high school baseball team. And that's a picture of him on the town baseball team. Yeah, he was about 14 years old when he was pitching for the town team, and those guys were in their 20s, you know. And this is dedicated here to some of the, from the old hometown baseball teams. This is a placard they used at Emerald, Wisconsin, promoting their baseball team. And this is Connorsville. This is Deer Park.
Look at the price.
Clear Lake.
10 cents for kids,
Yeah.
10 cents for ladies.
Yeah.
Gents, 25.
Yeah,
How did they determine that?
I don't know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
When I was a kid, I could come to town and my folks would give me a quarter and I could buy a bottle of pop, a bag of popcorn, a candy bar, and take a nickel home, put it in my finger bag.
Be sure to sign our guest book too.
Let's see here. These are all the minor league teams that he played for. He started in 1912 with what they call the Eau Claire Commissioners. And he went to Austin, Minnesota. There was some packing plant down there. But he played for about 6 farm teams, small minor league teams, before he ended up going to the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1960.
See, St. Croix had their Roy Patterson
Yeah.
was the equivalent, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Now, I was with Chuck Clark yesterday. He's been laid up in a rehab center over in Richmond. He came home, and he's told me the Ray Patterson story a number of times. He was digging around. He got to know Mrs. Patterson because she was, he was a baseball fanatic. So he went and visited her, and here she had a old clipping about her husband, Roy Patterson, pitched in the very first American League team. I can't remember what year it was. He went and sent a letter to the owners of the Chicago White Sox, and my mind is failing me too. I can rattle their names off here a few years ago, and I can't remember anymore. They invited her down and Charles Clark down to throw out the first pitch at a baseball game, and he said they treated us like kings and queens. They had special meals and quite a celebration. And Mrs. Patterson has told Chuck, that's the best thing that ever happened in my lifetime, and you were responsible for it. Chuck was one of those guys, he just wouldn't listen to something and ignore it, you know. He was an action guy.
Yeah.
Got things done, and he's still that way.
She was a piano teacher for a bunch of us when we were growing up.
Oh, really?
She did that.
Yeah, that's what he told me,
Yeah.
that she worked as a piano teacher, yeah, he told me that, yeah. Well, these are all the major league teams he played for, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Brooklyn Robins, they were the Brooklyn Dodgers back then, and now they're out in Los Angeles, California. The New York Giants, the Pittsburgh Pirates, again, he played for Pittsburgh twice, so he got shuffled around, but he pitched for 19 years, and
19 years.
19 years, and his most successful teams were the Dodgers, the Chicago Cubs, and the St. Louis Cardinals, where he experienced most of his success. And Chuck has a copy of his ring. He won the 7th game, World Series game in 1931, and he's got the ring that Burley Grimes was given, and he's got it at his house.
Well, he's got a lot of rings of his, if I remember right. We had him as a speaker.
Did you really? Oh, well,
Yeah.
then you got to meet him. I hate to say it, I never did meet him. I lived in Eau Claire, Wisconsin during my work career, and I missed all these activities. This is all dedicated to his Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, and there are 5 players from Wisconsin that are in Cooperstown Hall of Fame. And, he was 60 years. He spent 60 years in baseball, 19 years as a player. Then he was a manager, a scout, a coach. And he managed the 1943 International League champions, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, if you're a hockey fan, you associate that with hockey. Well, they were the Maple Leafs back then, was a baseball team. And he coached them and managed them to...
This was her wedding dress.
We have a brown wedding dress.
You know, back in the 20s, times were tough. You had to be more practical.
Well, that's why white wedding
Well,
dresses
even in
too.
the 1800s,
Yeah.
they usually wore black or brown or
Yeah,
something.
right. And this one, we don't know where it came from. I found it in our clothing collection,
Oh,
stuffed in 2 garbage bags, because there's a petticoat underneath it too.
Wow.
huh.
Do you think it was from the 60s or 70s, or do you think it was?
I really don't know.
Has it got elastic in it?
See now,
Yeah.
you take a picture of a garment, and then you can ask ChatGPT to tell you what era that looks like it
I've
comes
got a
from.
book, I can just look it up.
Yeah, except it's much simpler to do it with the.
Yeah, but looking it up's the fun part for me.
It takes you forever.
That's the part I like.
Yeah, this is the one that I think is just amazing, from 1917,
Wow.
and look at the condition.
But that was
It
a
is.
bridesmaid.
It looks brand new.
That was the bridesmaid.
That's the bridesmaid's dress.
Beautiful.
And then here's the photograph of her in it. She's the one on the right, and her twin sister is also a bridesmaid, and it was their cousin's wedding.
Oh. Is the back?
Between, just outside of Clear Lake, a few miles on the road, but,